Hello, everybody. I've got a special treat for you today. I just want to give you a little bit of background. First of all, this is Mark Rehkopf. He is one of my favorite illustrators in the world. I've bought lots of prints from him. We met at the Steampunk Festival in Coldwater. And I remember walking through and we had the same Stormtrooper shirt that we bought off Queen Street West in Toronto. I still have mine. And I'm like, did you get, anyway, it turns out it was the same vendor that we bought this shirt from. So anyway, we started chatting. He had his friend up, and his friend is I guess like a costume slash not set designer, but more of a costume designer, but really cool, like making molds for stormtroopers and that sort of thing. And these guys came together as a pair, and they had their own booth, and the illustrations were awesome. So I wanted to bring Mark in for an interview to be able to show some of his stuff, or first of all, to be able for him to show some of his portfolio, but then also to ask him some questions about maybe his process and that sort of thing. So Mark, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, this is a real treat.
Thank you very much for asking.
Oh, it's awesome. And
I finally had a chance to do this.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, it's been years. We sort of played back and forth, and with COVID and everything, it makes it really tough to get into the same location, and it makes it actually handier because you're in Toronto, correct?
I'm in Waterloo.
You're at Waterloo, so
Yeah.
it would have been a heck of a drive for you to come in.
Yeah.
So I also want to point out that Mark is not only an awesome illustrator, but he's also a luthier. Well, he says he's not, but if you look at the guitars up in his above his head, he actually makes his own guitars. So yeah, that's pretty friggin' impressive, if you ask me.
A luthier is going to get offended. So
well, they look pretty awesome.
Guitar maker.
Still, it's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Anyways, so I'm gonna give it over to you, and yeah, I guess I just want to introduce you, and then you take it from here, and I'll ask questions along the way.
Sure. Let's start with training. Where did I go to school?
Sure.
Well, even before college, I showed an interest in the arts, and that would have been in grade school. And I'll tell you the most fascinating story from when I was 11 years old, 12 years old. I was watching TV, and on came this commercial that showed ray guns going off and soldiers blowing up and spaceships and this beautiful girl. And I said, Mom, I want to go see that movie. And she looked at the screen, and then it came up. The title of the movie was Barbarella. And my mother kind of went, oh, why didn't I take you to see Star Wars instead? And so that's how my creative life got, basically started. But, and of course, every year, Christmas and birthdays, I used to get Star Wars books from my parents, and developed an interest in all the artwork and the pre-production designs that went on in filmmaking, and started to go down that road. So I ended up taking illustration at Sheridan College. This would have been in the mid 80s, a very long time ago. And so much has changed in this field. It's an entirely different field. But we'll get into that later, I guess. But yeah, I went through for 3 years of illustration, technical illustration. The reason I chose technical, there was two options, technical and interpretive. The reason I chose technical was because I wanted to learn how to draw dimensionally, understand things in 3D. So, when I was watching Star Wars and seeing these pre-production drawings of spaceships and such, you're drawing like a draftsman. So I really wanted to learn that to make things look realistic. And sure, I learned it. And the interpretive stuff happened later, once, because that's more of a thought process. So rather than a physical look, there's thinking behind it. Anyway, went with technical, graduated from there, did a year of computer animation at Sheridan in Oakville. And this was in the very early days, once again. Some of the computer animation students from Sheridan went on to Lucasfilm. So that was like a big eye opener for me. But I'm going to tell you that year in computer animation, 1997, was horrible. I hated it. I loved the first 6 months, but the second term, the second semester was a disaster. There were so many things. The old computers, which would run for 3 hours and then break down, and you generate one frame of image, and you're booking times at 2 a.m. And I got halfway through that, and I went, "This is not for me," and didn't finish it. I learned all I wanted to know about animation in the first 6 months, and I had a good grasp on how to put a story together visually. That was the key thing about animation, which comes into play with all sorts of projects. After that, I got a job working in a television studio in the art department. It's perfect. That was great. We had this primitive wind-up computer that used to do graphics. And I learned a bit of computer graphics on that. And it was fun. We built sets for children's TV shows, for shows like Romper Room and talent shows and kids shows like Treehouse and
Romper Room. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. So I had a great time drawing stuff for all those kids shows. And things progressed through the 90s, and I started doing small projects on my own and went into freelance artwork. And mostly because I just still love that original thing. I love to be able to work on my own and draw and paint realistically. Now, not so much realistically. There's different styles, but yeah, that was the niche that I went through.
So did you know that in the graphic design course, there used to be illustration 1, 2, and 3 for each year. And it involved, I remember when I went to college for graphics, there was illustration, but it involved some marker rendering and that sort of thing as far as mediums go. But now they're pulling illustration out of the graphic design field one by one, and now it's only one sort of drawing and illustration for graphic designers course throughout the whole 3 years now. It's been consolidated. What's your thoughts on that? And do you think it's right, or do you think illustration is a separate field from graphic design, or do you think it's important for graphic designers to know how to draw and illustration and that sort of thing?
I think it's two different playing fields in the same game, if that makes any sense. Graphic design has come a long way, and so has illustration. They both serve a slightly different purpose. Illustration is, in my opinion, much more of a storytelling process. Graphic design is something I haven't quite, it's not my specialty, but I do understand it, and I understand how that is a very important process. So the two of them have to work together. They're like brothers in the same team.
Yeah.
Mates.
Cool.
I would say, yeah, it's up to the student, if you develop an affinity or an interest in one or the other, to pursue whichever one you like.
But I think it's still important to have the option, just because it's part of creativity. And like, even if we're creating some kind of depth or perspective or some kind of drawing where we need to get shadowing and lighting and that sort of thing, I think just even the basics is pretty important to be able to apply to certain things in graphics, because there's a little bit of an overlap there. Like you said, they're brothers, but I just wanted to get a feel on your opinion whether it should be part of graphic design still, or if it's a different animal.
Well, I look at it like illustration is more of a three-dimensional process, and graphic design is really more of a two-dimensional process in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases it would be.
Right.
You know that there are great illustrators who draw in a two-dimensional process. Guys like Shag, or oh, I can see his book sitting on my shelf right here. And I can't quite reach it. I got a whole library here of artists that I love. But yeah, you can draw two-dimensionally, very graphically, but still come up with a nice illustration. So the two have to work hand in hand. You know, you have to have an understanding of one in order to make the whole project a success. Actually, you have to have an understanding of both of them. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. And sorry, I interrupted you halfway. You were talking about your experience, and then and you were talking about technical and interpretive illustration courses. And you took the technical
I did.
to learn sort of. Now, the technical, it was a lot of drafting and sort of probably ruling pens and blue lining and that sort of thing. And then was there a lot? I'm pretty sure there'd be a lot of isometrical drawing, but was there a lot of perspective too?
Yeah, it's very heavy on perspective. Not so much emphasis on a blueprint style drawing, but drawing an image that worked perspectively, 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3, 4, you know, make it all go the right way and look right. That way you get a sense of what the object is like on every side. It's so three-dimensional as opposed to graphics. I was going to say, oh yeah, oddly enough, taking technical and understanding three-dimensional graphics made me a better sculptor, believe it or not.
That's
And
cool.
years down the road, I ended up working for 12 years in a museum fabrication company. I was the art director there, and I spent 12 years building dinosaurs. The three-dimensionality of these creatures and how their skeletal structure works, you wouldn't necessarily get that from an interpretive style training. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the reason why I went three-dimensional. It was a wider understanding of the world.
That's cool. So the interpretive, what was that more geared towards?
That was more geared toward feeling and impression, and you know, you're creating an illustration that shows, you know, some sort of cultural significance that has a feeling or something more ethereal that you can't physically touch.
Okay.
That was more moody.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And that was at what college?
Sheridan College.
Sheridan. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. They have since amalgamated the two colleges into one big one in Oakville. And I think well, maybe there's still two there. I'm not sure, but yeah, I spent a long time there. and marker rendering, like you mentioned earlier, was a very important part. One of the classes that I enjoyed the most. And it's strange because you could do life drawing and the study of anatomy, and that's very three-dimensional as well. Yet it was key to both interpretive and technical classes. So yeah, it's a wider understanding, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, I also took life drawing. It was a bit of a shocker, you know, when we first went into the class, and then Helen, 82-year-old model, takes off her house coat and
yeah.
Is everyone seeing this? I'm not sure, you know, and then you're right into it. And then yeah. So anyway, that was probably my favorite class. And that's probably what helped me learn to draw properly. It's just not worrying so much, and just like, yeah. So anyway, I have respect.
I totally agree with you. Life drawing was a key class, very important and very, very fun, interesting. You know, I'm going to tell you a little bit of trouble I got into in life drawing class.
Okay.
We had black sketchbooks that, you know, we had to fill in as our homework and go out and do life drawing studies, just of whatever. And one time and then you hand the books in and the teacher grades them. One time, uh, I admittedly, I drew a picture of Spider-Man in my sketchbook. And my life drawing instructor did not like that at all.
Okay.
I called it an anatomy study, and I got a pretty bad mark for that particular time. My other marks were good, but she did not. She took offense to that drawing.
Really?
And now I'm going to say something that really bugs me about instructors. Yes, she was a good instructor, but she wasn't open-minded.
Yes.
10 years later, everybody in the industry is making Marvel movies.
Yeah.
You need to know all different kinds of anatomy styles, not
Yeah.
just one.
Yeah.
You need to know them all.
Yes.
You're going to find that job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I if I were the instructor and I saw that drawing, I would go, okay, sure, I'll include it, because
Right.
it is a type of anatomy study, maybe not particularly accurate, but it is a style that would need to be learned.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. And anyway,
Okay.
that's my pet peeve.
No, I appreciate that.
All right.
So, I was wondering if at all possible, could we see some of your stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as I can figure out how to put it up here on the screen. I'm going to share screen. Let's start with that one. Can you see that one?
Yes.
All right. That may have been the poster from the year we met.
Actually, I bought one of your cover art, and it is a woman that looks like she's plated in like a copper plate or metal of some sort. This is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to see if I can find that one. That one.
That's the one I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my wall in my office.
That was fun.
It's great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Nice colors, nice composition, I thought.
So
Yeah.
as you're showing us this, I'm just curious as to what's your process when you are coming up with an idea, or this is obviously it's a book cover, so there's graphical elements here where you're blocking off areas, that sort of thing. So how do you start to do this?
Well, you mentioned something very important. When I start a project, I need to know what the type is and what information is going to be on that poster in order to plan the space. That's key. What are going to be the most important phrases or text that needs to show up and catch the eye of the viewer? So you block off your drawing. You start off with an idea for what you want to draw. In this case, it was her arm, her arms, and her the direction she's looking. That kind of gives you that S curve shape.
So a flow or a direction of some sort to lead your eye.
That's basic composition. Exactly.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's the first one. What else can I show you? Well, I don't know what I can show you here. Is there anything else you remember specifically that you'd like me to?
Well, I just love your styles, and I'm interested in all of your all of your artwork. I mean, I bought some of your
After a theme, you can,
okay, that's what I mean.
yeah, there's a number of different sort of villages that I live in illustration. There would be the music village, where I'm illustrating CD covers and music based like gig posters and event posters and things like that. And then there's my own personal sort of film and TV interested. Uh, I'm running out of the right words here.
I hear you. I understand.
Basically, film posters,
Cool.
straight up film posters. Now, everybody knows what the Star Wars posters look like, and they know what all the famous movie posters are like. But I like to create my own posters. So I like to cast my own movies in my head, come up with the storyline as I'm working on the image. So in this case, can you see that one?
Yes, the girl with the stolen ray gun.
Exactly. That came up as, hey, I like to draw science fiction, ray guns, and I like to draw girls. I'll just be plain and honest and say it. I like to draw Betty Page from the 1950s, pinup model. So I combined the two, made my own film poster, and people seem to love that.
It's so cool, so retro.
Yeah, it really has the retro style and to the way the lettering is dropped in there and the basic composition, but it's cheap, but it has a certain style that's
It's
very retro, very reminiscent. I'm going to take you on another little interesting tour. Can you see that one?
yeah, the Ramones.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you got them signed.
Yeah. Signed by each of the Ramones, 1994.
Wow, that's so cool.
I got laid off from my first job working in television, and I was just sitting there. What am I going to do? I had no projects, got nothing to do. So I would give myself projects. What would I like to draw? Well, I'd love to draw a cool poster of the Ramones. And so this is an original airbrushed piece. So it's about 30 inches high by 20 inches wide. It's made in 1994 before the digital painting ever happened. And I designed it all, did the pencil drawing, figured out the composition, and finished the work just in time to take the original artwork to an event that the Ramones were playing at. I didn't call anybody. This was the 90s, so I didn't make any arrangements whatsoever. I just went to the event with this big painting under my arm. And I'm standing kind of near the side of the stage. And this guy comes over and he says, what can I see that? So I showed it to him. He says, oh, geez, man, come with me. And he takes me behind backstage before the show opened and winds me down the hallway around the corridor into the dressing room, and bam, there's Joey Ramone standing right there.
Wow.
All the guys are in the dressing room, and they were so nice, man. They were just like, oh yeah, that's really cool, man. That's great. And they all grabbed a marker and they signed it for me. And, I was just blown away.
That's awesome.
And 3 minutes later, I'm on my way back out to the car with a signed painting.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah, I still have that here too.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was a project that I made for myself. There was no client, just me.
Oh,
Lots of fun, I'm just gonna pop it out of the
what's that?
I'm just gonna pop it out of the plastic here.
Okay, sounds good. So this is part 2 of interview with Mark Rehkopf. my daughter was sick at school and I had to cancel the interview, and we've rescheduled, and here we are. So we were leaving off with the Ramones poster that Mark took to the concert and went backstage and had signed. And he's actually going to show us the actual piece here. And this is on illustration board before there were computers.
That's correct. There it is. I don't know how well you can see that. I'm going to try and hold it up.
Awesome.
Get some light on. Actually, I'll bring it a little closer. You can see at the bottom, there's the signatures.
Whoa.
From the band. So yeah, I got to meet each one of the guys, and they were all fantastic. Just such nice guys. I couldn't believe how tall Joey Ramone was.
Really?
Yeah, incredible. But those are the days when, you know, those things could happen. And today, no, sorry. If you want to meet the band, it's going to cost you $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa, there goes part of my art easel.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. Yeah, that was a blast, man. And just doing projects like that on my own, sort of being my own client. You know, that way I got to do illustrations that I wanted to do. And what it did was lead me down a path of interests as opposed to someone else's interests, my own interests. So if I drew things that I wanted to draw, then I could build up that portfolio and have the subject matter that I enjoy. I still get asked all the time to draw stuff that I don't particularly enjoy drawing. You know, it's just someone hears, oh, you can draw. Can you draw this for me? And like, well, I don't really want to draw a still life of a bouquet of flowers, or I don't want to draw your Uncle Joe.
Or your dog.
Yeah. But you know, you got to kind of focus on your own interests in order to get the work that you're going to enjoy later on.
So when we first met, actually, I think it was the second time that I went to the Steampunk Festival. I bought a bunch more of your prints, which are all in my office, and you gave me your book that you created. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really awesome and interesting. It's like an illustrated, perfect bound book, and I'm not sure. I don't want to move in any direction too fast, but I just you were telling us about the different categories of themes that you illustrated for. One was music, and you showed us the Ramones, but I've got some really cool prints in my office of some sort of astronaut guitar scenes, and I think it's really cool. But anyway, yeah, I'd like to hear more about just how you started, and then you started to get into where you were into dinosaurs and putting these things together, and your illustrations in that genre, just those different themes that you're talking about. I'd love to see some samples.
Oh, sure.
More samples.
Well, strangely enough, that astronaut one was a music theme. It's the cover of a CD for Nick Johnson.
Oh, cool.
Now, Nick Johnson he's traveling the world, or he has been traveling the world, releasing his own personal guitar style. And I happened to meet Nick at another event. And so funny, he's a funny guy. He's very, very tall, just as tall as Joey Ramone. And he's kind of racing down the street. We were all set up, all the art booths were set up on the street in Guelph. And I saw him go by and kind of stop, and he looked and he said, "Hey, do you want to illustrate my CD cover?" And I said, "Sure. Here's a card." And I thought, what the heck? I'll never see the guy again. Sure enough, he gives me a call. And I said, "Well, okay, have you got your album ready? Like, I'd like to hear what you sound like, because I don't know. Who knows? This guy could be terrible, right?" And whatever. So
I think that's so interesting that you wanted to hear the music to be able to get into the zone, to be able to illustrate this.
Oh, it's really important. Otherwise, you can be wasting your time with someone who is amateur but has big dreams.
I agree.
Very true, right?
Yeah.
he sent me a sample of his music, and 30 seconds into it, I realized that this guy was enormously talented. Like, I'm talking Eddie Van Halen level.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I immediately messaged him back and said, "Yeah, man, let me know when and where," and we worked it all out. And I did 4 album covers for him over the next 6 years. So all his albums, he's on his 5th album now. And since then, he's gotten a production company, and he's gotten huge. I mean, he's traveled the world playing his own music. So yeah, you can check him out, and you'll see all my album covers. Can we still share the screen here? Because I've got
Yeah.
to
Let me just make sure.
share.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's the awesome piece of work. And what's this guy's name again?
Nick Johnston. He is an instrumental guitarist, and doesn't really have a band, just does it all on his own.
Wow. This
But
is
yeah,
beautiful.
he's a brilliant player, and it was just a wonderful opportunity to get some great CD work out, like art covers. Now it's become a thing of the past. I mean, we were doing this 10 years ago, kind of at the tail end of CDs, and man, do I miss it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to love the days when you'd sit down with a record cover and just look at the cover
Yeah.
and get immersed in that while you're listening to the music. And now we're all stuck with these 1-inch wide screens and single bland graphics or pictures of the person. And it's just dull.
Yeah. Or it's all motion now and it doesn't, yeah, I agree with you. This is gorgeous.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This one.
Oh, cool.
So that was for the second album for Nick. And, when he walked by my booth, he saw a piece of artwork. He said, "Man, I really like that. If you can do something like that for me, then we'll have something." And to this day, we still get on. I don't handle his artwork as much anymore, but we still get on. We still get together and have meetings and say hi. We became friends over the years. So
Oh, that's cool.
it's a blast. I love it when you can relate to a client well enough that you don't always have to talk money. You can just sit down and chew the fat.
Yeah. I hear you. That's gorgeous. I love your style. It's so retro, but it's like there's certain elements. Like I was a big Mad magazine collector when I was a kid, and you've got these little nuances in your coloring, and I just love the lighting and the depth that you're using in your drawings. And it's got, like, even when I watch Ren and Stimpy, some of the backgrounds, they've got that sort of,
Oh yeah. Well, that's influences are huge. We should really talk about influences.
Yeah, please.
I already mentioned the Star Wars stuff, but once you discover that influence, it kind of leads you on the path. Like I discovered the names Ralph McQuarrie and Joe Johnson through the Star Wars connection, and then looked into those guys. And man, you just find an ocean of work. There's just tons of artists that have come and gone and that are still out there, of course. And they're all sort of feeding off each other. Sometimes they're directly stealing from each other. But you know what? We're all guilty of that. I can tell you that right now that George Lucas is guilty of that. He stole stuff from Dune. He stole stuff from Flash Gordon. He stole all kinds of things. But the trick is not to steal too much, but to put your own spin on it each time.
It's called creative plagiarism.
Well, I hate to use the P word,
Yeah.
because it's not like you're taking the actual work and saying, "No, I did this. George Lucas didn't do that. I did it." It's like, no, you're using the inspiration and the style and the design to create something new.
Well, I like that better.
Yeah. So some people are saying, "Oh, well, it's a steal." Well, yes, it is, and yes, it isn't.
Yeah.
Well, we can go through a few other things here too.
I'd love it.
Let me just search a little bit. Uh, influences. Here's an influence of mine. Now, this is a painting that was inspired by the work of N.C. Wyeth. N.C. Wyeth was an illustrator from about 100 years ago. So
Wow.
he used to illustrate all the adventure novels, things like Robin Hood and King Arthur, uh, all that sort of, that literary work. And the thing I love best about that is you could read those old novels, and every 50 pages or so, there's a beautiful painting right in the middle, and it just envelops you, it takes you in. And N.C. Wyeth was very much an influence for me. I found one of his books at the local library, and ever since then, it was like, wow,
That's so
I love this artwork. And N.C. Wyeth was a student from the Brandywine, not museum, there is a museum, but the Brandywine School of Arts. So there were a whole group of artists that came out of there. Um, Howard Pyle was a huge influence, painted very similar in style. N.C. Wyeth and Frank Schooner, all kinds. There's all kinds. All those book illustrators from about 100 years ago. Brilliant, brilliant work. These are painters that knew color, shape, composition, anatomy, all kinds of things. So when I got into dinosaurs later on, I wanted to show them in a way that wasn't like a textbook. I wanted it to be more of a creative way and still be relatively scientifically accurate. So here we had a Diplodocus dinosaur, long tail, long neck. And it's not the main focus of the scene. The main focus is the tree. The tree kind of carries you right through it, but then you kind of notice the dinosaur behind it. So it was just my way of interpreting N.C. Wyeth's work and giving it that same style, that same painterly feeling.
that's really cool. That's beautiful.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I did a whole lot of dinosaur stuff. There's different styles here. I'll
Yeah.
show you something else. Now there.
Oh my goodness. Is that a painting?
That is a paint. Well, it's not a photograph.
Wow. Wow.
Um, later on, when I was working with a fellow named Hall Train, Hall is a dinosaur sculptor, and I learned a lot of stuff from him. We had the commission to create a animatronic dinosaur for what was it? Universal Studios. So you could go down to Universal Studios theme park and walk into this area, and you'd see a life-size Triceratops, and you could reach out and pet it. So this was basically a pre-production image of how I thought the thing should look like. It's based on one of Hall's drawings, but it's all airbrushed, like the Ramones painting I showed you.
Okay.
And well, the background is airbrushed, and the basic colors underneath are all airbrushed. And then every little bump and crease and crack and tchotchke
Wow.
is hand painted.
Wow, that's gorgeous. I just couldn't even imagine. So for something like this,
Mhm.
idea wise, how long would something like this take you?
That was about 2 weeks of evenings, just sitting there and painting and noodling around, getting
Wow,
little details in.
that's
And
gorgeous.
I'd use acrylic paint, transparent airbrush acrylic paints, a little bit of pencil crayon over the top
Okay.
of it, just to kind of bring things out. So yeah, it's got a little bit of drawing feeling into it. And there's another cue on influences. One of the influences I had that I discovered through the Star Wars connection was a man named Drew Struzan. And if you don't know who Drew Struzan is, man, Google that name. He's just retired a year or two ago. And he was the movie poster creator for the last 30 years, maybe 40.
Oh, okay.
So everything you've seen, every Indiana Jones poster, Star Wars posters, all of the huge, huge posters, all done by Drew.
So when I collected all those Star Wars cards, and then you would get in those little packs with the gum, and then you put all the backs together and it would make up a poster. He did that artwork?
Well, yeah, a great portion of it. Yeah, I'm talking mainly the movie posters that you see in the theater.
Those are gorgeous too.
And I was fortunate enough to meet Drew
Wow.
at an event, an airbrush action event, and I got to hang out with him. And it was kind of fun because he's such a nice guy. I'll show you something special here. Oh, don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
But up behind me is an Indiana Jones poster.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I've got him to sign that, as well as a Star Wars poster, which I have kind of in storage right now. But he was an influence. And after studying Drew Struzan's work, I discovered other artists, mainly J.C. Leyendecker, who was also another artist from about 100 years ago, who did brilliant, brilliant drawings, paintings, had a real sense of the illustrative figure. So yeah, there's another name to Google, J.C. Leyendecker, Leyandecker, Decker, Decker. I got it wrong.
This is awesome.
But yeah, so you pick up little bits of things from influences and you develop your own style as best you can from that.
Oh, Tom Petty and the Heartbreak.
Kind of going out and back in. Yeah. So that's got very much a drawing style.
That's cool.
And it's
Did you do any of this on the computer?
I did. Now, I took some photographs of our hallway upstairs, which has a kind of weird stucco mix.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to blend that into the drawing a little bit. I'm going to zoom in if I can, if it helps.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Cool. You can kind of see
Wow.
how the drawing kind of leads into the background and they kind of play with each other a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's partly from Drew Struzan, who developed a similar style to that. You'll see that in the movie posters. These
That's
are
really cool.
Little tricks and little signature moves that you can kind of use, but create your own work from.
For sure. Right? That's gorgeous. I love your lines and the glows on the outside that sort of punch the character. Just the different colors borrowed from the background.
Yeah. And you see the line work in the sleeves.
Yeah.
You know, that was digitally drawn. That wasn't hand drawn.
Wow. And do you use a tablet?
I do. I have a gigantic Wacom tablet. I love the large, it's about 18 inches by 18 inches.
Holy crap. And so, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just was curious. Do you use Photoshop?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Exclusively Photoshop. Although right now I'm looking for another paint program because pretty soon I'm going to have to upgrade and I'm not a fan of a monthly subscription.
I hear you.
Yeah, that kind of turned me off. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, they trap us, you know, we get us addicted, then they trap you and then corner you and then make you pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's gorgeous.
Well, thank you.
Love the style of just the brush strokes and how it burrows into it lends itself into the background. That's really neat.
Yeah. Composition and yeah, it's a stylistic decision. There's almost an outline to it, you know, that really helps pop it. You can look at around the shirt sleeve, you'll see red outlines and, you know,
got a dark and then an extra red and yeah, I love it.
Really
I think it's awesome.
pop the image, doing the contrast like that.
That's awesome.
Let's take you on another journey here and see where else we can go.
Oh, cool.
So this is one of my own subject matters. I kind of like to create a Halloween drawing. Just let me get this a bit bigger so we can zoom in a bit. So yeah, now that's in Photoshop as well.
So When you're in your process, do you start drawing in Photoshop, or do you start with a basic sketch on paper?
I do it either way. A lot of times I will sketch out really small thumbnail sketches, probably only 2 or 3 inches in size,
Yeah.
and then I scan that and I develop the drawing from there. Or sometimes straight on the computer, just sketching straight in the computer.
And do you do like a sort of a light blue line first to sort of give yourself a template?
I used to, not anymore, because when I sketch in Photoshop, I sketch with a almost a transparent, like there's levels of transparency. I
Right.
don't go with a solid line. I will go with a 20% line or a 10% line just to start working up the shapes and
Okay. And so you build it from there.
yeah, and I increase the opacity as I go through it. And you
Cool.
also add layers and figure out what colors are going to look right and positioning and
That's really cool.
yeah, it's a whole process.
That's so neat.
So yeah, like this had a rock photograph, and that was um, not stencil painted, but replicated.
Right.
So you kind of make a brush out of that rock. Black.
Oh,
It's just
what's it
it's
called? The history brush.
yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, yeah. Or it's like a oh, what's the right word? It's they call it a stencil or a stamp. Actually, a stamp is closer.
Yeah.
So you'll turn it into a brush and you'll use it to stamp and kind of get all those subtle little textures in the brush stroke.
And you can pick whether it's wet or dry.
Yeah, you can. I usually work dry. I find wet is a little bit much for me, depending on what I want the style to look like.
That's really cool.
If I want it to look like a watercolor painting, yes, I use the wet style brush.
Right.
I don't know if I have any more of those. There it is.
Oh, cool.
So that was a pencil sketch that was about that big, very tiny. Scanned it, enlarged it into the size that I wanted in Photoshop, and then just refined the sketch. All in monochrome, monotones, black and white and grays. That's where
Right.
we're talking about building up the opacity of things. It would have started off as a very light sketch, and then as you refine, you get darker and darker.
That's really awesome.
And then each one of the band players would be on a separate level so that you can position them exactly in the right place.
Right.
Some of the instruments would have been on a separate level too. Just to make your composition work, you need that separation to
Yeah.
all those things.
That's awesome. Love the style.
Yeah, lots of fun. That's somewhere between, I don't want to say realistic, but kind of a cartoony, comic booky, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's
still,
really cool.
you have enough realism there to kind of know what the faces are. If anybody who doesn't know these guys, you might not. That's the Beatles.
Yes. I could
Back-
tell John Lennon.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the day when they all thought they were Elvis.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You got George and you got Paul on piano, the original drummer. Uh,
Yeah. I don't think I realized that Ringo wasn't there at the beginning.
no, he wasn't. He wasn't. That's Pete Best.
Okay. Okay. I did know that.
Yeah. Strangely enough, I've met him.
What?
Yeah, I met one of the Beatles. Got him to sign a artwork for a friend of mine.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, for a wedding gift. So I met him and met John Lennon's first wife, and yeah, it was at an event. I think it was 1989. And I had done
Oh,
a painting and managed to get them to sign it and gave it to them
that,
for a wedding gift.
that is so cool. That's gorgeous. I love the effects you're getting.
Yeah, it depends on what you need. Now this artwork, let's talk a little bit about something that's a big issue. I think
Okay.
outright theft. I didn't steal this artwork. This is entirely mine, even though the style is slightly borrowed from other places. But this artwork I posted and it got stolen, and it was used on a website for some beetle guide, I think down in South America. And I get no control over that, you know?
Yeah.
So I do apologize for the watermark across the middle. But if you're an artist and you're putting artwork out on the web, man, you've got to do this.
Yeah, for sure you do.
You have
Unless
to,
you want to buy a print, then you can order it,
yeah,
sell it like you're supposed to have it.
exactly. I've had so much artwork stolen.
That's not cool.
Well, no. Like, I don't mind if someone goes to the trouble. Like, my name is on all of them. Look up my name and contact me. And yeah, there's a good chance I'll let you use it. But
Yeah.
don't just do it outright.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That Ramones painting, if you go on YouTube and look at, there's some Ramones videos there, you'll see that painting up. And I
Okay.
did not give any permission of use for it. But that's the kind of thing you're battling against when you're putting visuals out into the world these days.
That's for sure. It's quick to be able to share them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there's comic book style artwork.
Cool.
We can look at that.
And I love that you have styles that there's little nuances that you appreciate from different artists and then incorporate it and learn from that. That's not plagiarism to me at all. I think that's just respecting something that works and then utilizing it and trying to master it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even taking that and going a little bit further,
Yes.
if you can, if you can figure that out. There's all kinds of different stuff. I'll show you. Here's one of my comic book characters. I will go back and so there.
So this is close to, like, I'd say graphic design, because you're not only are you illustrating. So this is a painting?
This
Oh,
is all kinds of different things. This is a painting, this is a photograph, and kind of an overpainted photograph as well.
got it.
So that's actually me in costume.
Oh, right on.
So one year, the Silver Snail comic shop, they used to have a Halloween party. And I got invited. So I thought, I'll make myself a costume. I wanted to go as kind of a Flash Gordon type guy.
Right on.
I had an old helmets and a few old cereal bowls, plastic cereal bowls that I cut up, put on.
Right on.
A couple other things. I made a ray gun out of an old rivet gun.
Oh,
Glued a couple of goggles onto my helmet. Went out as this character. I ended up winning second prize.
right on. That's
You
good.
know what?
That's huge for Silver Snail.
Oh yeah.
That's big time.
And so why don't I take this character and just, illustrate him up and call him my own. So this was the cover off my comic book. And in the background, there's an illustration. Oh, what's his name? There's another illustrator that you need to look up. Chesley Bonestel. Very, very important illustrator in my life. Chesley Bonestel. I think it's Bonestall.
Okay, I'll check that out.
And Chesley Bonestel did all kinds of beautiful, not science fiction paintings, science fact paintings. So they would, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, he would illustrate what they thought the moon looked like. He would be professionally hired as an illustrator by NASA or by whoever to illustrate a realistic scene that would occur on another planet.
Wow.
And his work was simply brilliant. It just took you to another place and gave you that feeling that you were standing on another planet.
That is so cool.
And you'll see his work on occasion in films, the old 1950s sci-fi films. But there's a whole nother world to Chesley Bonestel that I had no idea he did until recently. He's actually designed parts of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. He was an amazing engineer.
Oh, cool.
Now this takes us right back to understanding structure when you're drawing. So not only was he a brilliant painter and got well known for that, but he had a whole career as an engineer. Interesting fellow.
That's really
Anyway,
cool. I
he,
love this.
he did a background very similar to this, the cracked floor and the bright colors. I enhanced the colors a little bit just to give it that retro feel. But
That's
yeah,
really cool. Yeah, that looks awesome.
it worked out well. And there's a
And
bit
there's some
of,
graphic design in there as well as illustration. So you're giving room for the heading and the yeah,
you're
I think it's
planning your
awesome.
space. You're planning how the viewer is going to read, what they're going to see first. They're going to see red letters first, usually. They're going to see the high contrast parts. So the red letters and the high contrast of the figure and the high contrast of the text at the bottom. Those are the three main things that you want to hit the viewer with.
That's right. And give their eye a direction, right? And I see that in a lot of your artwork. So it's like the one of your, I've got a couple of your book covers, which were, there's some interesting ones. You've got this monster collection, which I've got, and there's pinup Space Girl one that I have as well. And then you've also got, there's storybooks that you made up your own covers for, and I can't remember. I've got one of them up right now. It's got a sort of a snow sculpture on the front, and it was I can't remember the author's name, but you had those three that are that I bought, which are on my wall. I just friggin' love them.
That might be H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a huge Lovecraft fan. I love those old horror stories. You know, there would be no better assignment for me than to illustrate a Lovecraft story.
That's awesome.
It's actually what I do in my spare time. I have a few drawings now that I'm starting to post. I'll post you the one here.
Sure. Oh yes, I remember this one.
Yeah, so Cthulhu.
That's
The
awesome.
dreaded monster from the elder gods, from an undimensional plane or a non-dimensional, non-Euclidean, bizarre. You have to read the books, and anyone who does knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it's so cool.
Yeah, monsters that you can only half glimpse in reality. And if you were to glimpse them at all, they would drive you immediately insane.
Oh wow.
You know, who wouldn't want to read a cool horror story based on that?
Yeah. Wow, this is gorgeous.
Yeah, creepily gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, this is an assignment I give myself just for fun, you know, come up with
So
some.
on that line, usually at one time, I mean, I know you're making guitars, you've got other things that you're doing and stuff, but I'm wondering how many do you have on the go? And I know they're hobbies, so you've got, you do it for your own soul, right? So I'm just wondering how much you do and how often you do it, and do you give yourself goals, or it's just for a love?
A little bit of everything you just said. Really, I have works in progress from several years ago in my computer that I could finish up and put out. And I do that, and then sometimes I just start with something brand new. A lot of it depends on the flow of the piece itself, or depends on the amount of workload I have with other projects. But yeah, there's back burner projects. There's always a dozen back burner projects sitting there, and they get released eventually. You know,
Okay, so you do commit yourself to them. You don't forget about them and leave them.
no.
That's awesome.
This was a little the Cthulhu monster one here was a sketch that I did back in the 90s and only worked out into a digital painting probably about 10 years ago.
I remember seeing this printed. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. And then there's other stuff that, hey, I need this in a week and a half. Can you please do it? That's a little difficult. You have to reshift everything, and people don't really understand that you've got other projects on the go. They expect you to be able to do everything immediately as soon as they ask.
Right.
I
Yeah.
I had a client this year that I just shook my head and had to walk away from them because they would want all these meetings, online meetings, and they'd describe everything to me that they wanted. And then I'd go into it and I'd work a couple of days on it, do exactly what they asked for. Then I show it to them and say, oh no, that's not what I asked for at all. And I'm like, yeah, it is. So this happened a few times over the period of about 2 weeks. And each time I was like, well, can you have it done 2 days from now? It's like, well, I can try and show them a progress. Oh, that's not what I want at all. And then finally I just said, look, you're going to find yourself another illustrator because I'm not going to do this. It's not working out.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It
Oh,
happens.
I know.
You have a great client one day and a terrible client the next.
Yeah. And
And
sorry.
essentially, it's about informing your clients. You got to tell them the right way to go about, commissioning an artwork.
Yeah.
And my friend Scott Maple and I, we talk every once in a while about creating a podcast about artists and their frustrations.
Oh, I'm in.
Yeah. So, and we would definitely get you to talk a bit about that. We may do this. It's another one of the
Oh,
back burner projects that
I have lots of stories, and one of the main sayings that I live by is people don't know what they like until they see something they don't like.
that's true. Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah. They
And
just too many cooks. And then and the risk, as soon as you make your client into the art director, or you don't make them, but you ask their opinion, and then all of a sudden they feel like you're the tool
yeah,
and they can control the tool. And it's like, yeah, then it's not fun anymore.
on the contrast, right now I have a client who I'm designing background images for. He's doing an opera.
Oh, cool.
So all the performers will be there on stage and all the backdrops behind them will be paintings that I've done digitally. He's a fantastic client.
And he loves everything you do.
Well, he does, but he
Yes.
has lots of suggestions, and he says, I'd like to see this, and make sure you show that. But his suggestions make sense.
And then the appreciation is there.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
And that makes all the difference. Can we see one?
I don't know if I can show you one.
Okay. Don't worry. I understand.
I better not.
Okay,
I would
no
love to.
problem. I totally get it.
Yeah, I would love to, but we're going to be releasing this. Hopefully, if COVID doesn't change anything, we're going to be releasing this in May.
And will it be a Toronto play?
Yeah, I'm going to show you a project I narrowly missed out on.
Okay, perfect.
I think you got to show the good with the bad. There.
Oh, that worked.
There's another music one.
Oh, cool.
Now, I had done an image of, I don't know if any of you watching will know the Stray Cats.
I love the Stray Cats.
Yeah, from the 80s, mid 80s, these guys brought rockabilly back, and they were amazing, and they still are. They all still play. I did a really quick caricature of Brian Setzer, the main player in the band. I put it out online, and about 6 months later, I got an email from his record company that said, "Hey, Brian really loves that drawing. Can we buy it off you?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'm thrilled." So here I've got one of the Stray Cats bought my artwork, and you see it on some of his merchandise now.
Right on.
And a little later on, they were nice enough, and they contacted me and said, "Brian needs a Christmas album, and we've got 2 people that we consider to do the album cover." And I thought, wow, I'm one of the people you consider. And I was just blown away. And he said, "Well, you only got 2 days to do so." So I pulled a couple of a late night and put this piece together. And I narrowly lost out to another guy whose name is Derek Zaniger. Now, Derek Zaniger, very similar style, but he's so much better than I am.
Oh, now I don't know
I don't,
about that.
I'm not upset at all about losing out. Well, I am a little bit, but Derek's work is brilliant. I've never met him, but if you look at his style, and he's got this amazing design sense, along with the retro style. Uh, you look at his work, it just takes you right back to 1955. But it was fun to do, and a
That
little
is,
story
it's
that
gorgeous.
yeah. Now
It's such a good job.
they gave me the title, and that's all they gave me. And said go for it.
Wow.
And it's kind of funny when I looked at Derek's work that had won after I had finished this, and they're very similar.
Really?
They're almost exactly the same.
You're kidding.
Yeah, yeah,
Colors and everything?
yeah. There's kind of his is
Variants.
more blocky and a little bit more retro, which is I think why they chose it. But the same thing. You've got the Rudolph there playing, and you've got Brian Setzer playing guitar. Same kind of blocky,
Oh my
crazy
God.
shape in the background.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so I wasn't upset. I was very flattered to come
That
in.
is cool. And the fact that you're in line with your one of your favorites, that was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what happens when you illustrate your own interests.
You
Where the work comes in
start to
there.
become them.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Although
Yeah.
guitar playing is nowhere near that.
That is so cool.
What else can I show you?
You have so much cool stuff. Like how many pieces have you gone professionally and printed?
Uh, it depends on the client work is professional. I would call it professional.
Yep.
Some of it gets printed, some of it gets just used online.
Right.
But some of it gets used for both. Most clients, for like this one, for instance.
There, I can totally see all your stuff now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. This one
Awesome.
is a printed poster as well as used online, and the elements were taken off and kind of restructured so that you'd see them on the website better. And it was a very popular poster. It still is. I still sell this one.
The colors are great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
This was the first poster I did for Visionary Tattoo Arts Festival. And the nice thing was they contacted me and said, hey, we looked you up and we thought we need an artist. Will you do something? And they gave me free reign with the first poster. They said, do what you want. And lo and behold, it worked out really well.
Oh man.
And then the second year, they said, well, we want this theme and we want this in it. And it didn't work out as well.
Oh, I see.
At least not from my perspective. But you got to have the confidence coming from the client. The client has to understand that you can do the work. If they're impressed with your work, then you can do the work.
Right.
They don't need to guide you.
Right. Wow, that's beautiful.
And there's a lot of pinup stuff. I don't know, these days, maybe it's inappropriate, but I don't know. I don't know. I think everyone's got a different story and different take on that.
No, I think it's really cool. Like all your stuff is just, I just love the style. And you must just have hundreds.
By now, yeah. Like you mentioned that book. That book was from 2008 that I did. And the reason I did it is I just wanted a compilation of the work up until that point, and a lot of artists I knew at that time were putting out their own sketchbooks. Some of them are little tiny sketchbooks printed on a photocopier, and some of them are, printed on a press and distributed everywhere. But I wanted a good record of my illustration. And these days, 12, 15 years later, I've got twice as much as what I used to have. So I was thinking about printing up another book, and then I thought, print is almost dead here. You know,
Isn't
it's
that sad?
unfortunate. It is really sad. You know, it's like was it Egon in Ghostbusters who says print is dead? That
Yeah,
was 1984.
that's awful.
One of the Ghostbusters predicted the future.
Oh man,
But yeah, I'd love to do another sort of compilation.
that would
But I
be
guess,
really awesome.
yeah, the way you do that now, I guess, is on YouTube or you know, or you just show it on ArtStation or wherever, you know, whoever's showing portfolios. But it doesn't have the satisfying flip through the pages kind of feel, you know.
Yeah. Can I ask you this font that you use? Did you illustrate it or did you have reference to?
Um, they came up with the word visionary, and I think I found a font that matched or a similar font to it.
Right.
I think I had to kind of hand create a little bit of it
Yeah.
because fonts can be good and bad depending on
Yes.
where you get them from. But yeah, like it had to be a tattoo like font. It
Right.
had that vibe.
And yeah, so you illustrated it for the
Yeah,
most part. You had reference. That's cool. Very cool.
yeah, lots of fun. I mean, illustrating tattoos is a intricate job.
Yeah.
You've got someone with all these tattoos on them. Oh my gosh. You have to figure out what each tattoo is of, like, and then draw it. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but it works out if you plan it properly.
Well, this is awesome.
I think the request on this one was that they wanted the flowers. You can see the flowers in the two corners there.
Yeah.
And all the rest was fine. I came up with the treasure map behind and the skeletons, and they're supposed to kind of be popping out of the sand. Um,
Oh, okay. It
and
does look like that. And then the treasure map. Did you illustrate those little?
yeah, a lot of those were just nabbed off of the internet and kind of cleaned up and dropped on.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
clip
gorgeous.
clip art is your friend.
Yeah. It can be for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what else
Well,
can I find for
yeah,
it?
no, whatever you can show. Oh, yeah, I can see all that now. That's
Oh, you
awesome.
can? Okay.
So you can click on one and press the space bar. It should pop up for us. I don't know if that'll work or not, but yep, perfect.
There we go.
Oh, wow.
That, if I was a film director and I could make movies today, that's the movie I'd make.
Drag strip vixen and the robot zombie.
And it would be every bit as cheap and tacky as they used to make those in the old days.
These are so awesome. I love these.
I kind of wanted to fit into that niche, that the Quentin Tarantino of movie posters.
So cool.
That's kind of
So
the direction I'm heading.
that's very cool. This
The
is great.
cars were from some photographs that I had taken at a car show
Right.
and dropped on there.
So it's
And
your own anyway.
yeah, yeah. The robot was from an earlier illustration that I had done. I just changed a few things around. And the girl actually was inspired by the singer Pink.
Oh, cool.
She had this photo op where she was wearing this cool helmet and goggles. And how that looks really cool. It looks like a race car girl, That's what I wanted to see. And draw the rest. Just drew it all
That's
up.
really well done.
But the graphics in the back are really what sell that. I think the line work coming up and out, kind of framing the words, the text.
And the parchmenty sort of paper and whatnot, you use that as an effect to
Yeah,
give it that retro. Yeah, you did a great job.
yeah, little worn edges and folds and
Do you do the displacement map?
no. I have some shots of old paper, just some reference shots, and I make it a little bit transparent, and then I go in and kind of heighten the little cracks and lines and
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I love your stuff. I just I can't get enough of it. I want you to do another book for sure, and you have to let me know when you're done, because yeah, I just love it.
I'd love to do another book. Here's another one, very similar.
Cool.
Now, this was, I was asked, I was featured in Cruisin' Magazine, which is a hot rod illustration or hot rod magazine in Australia. And they feature art too. So they asked me, hey, do you want to be featured in our magazine? I said, sure. And I did a quick illustration too for them. Worked
That's
out really well.
awesome.
Later on, I turned it into a poster, you know.
That's really cool. I love how you have the IN starting to ignite. That's really neat.
Lots of fun.
These are great. I could look at this stuff all day, and I wish I had like a library of your stuff.
You see
Oh,
that?
that's cool. Yeah.
That's a team up work. So that was an illustrator named Bobby Chiu, Chiu, who he's an instructor. He has a studio called Imaginism Studios, and he does online instruction for kids learning illustration. And he grabbed my sketchbook. I took his courses just to kind of bone up on my painting.
Cool.
And he had my sketchbook, and he drew a figure, just a pencil line drawing of this guy. There was no context to it. And I said, hey, Bobby, do you mind if I kind of work that up into a painting? He said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I thought, well, he's a really cute, kind of goofy looking monster, but there's got to be an angle to this that is unusual. So I just went size. I just went Godzilla size, you know, and rural. So he's not really killing a lot of people when he walks through the.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's sensitive.
He's just, you know, he's crushing a lot of trees and grass and fields.
He doesn't really stand too tall, right? So when he walks, he sort of only takes out a few taller buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on.
But it worked out quite well. I was quite happy with the drawing.
That's
So yeah,
awesome.
it's kind of a nice thing to be able to team up with someone once in a while and just and work on something
Well,
that you can come up with, you know.
wow. It's so amazing. Thank you so much for just, yeah, I want to keep looking. I just I see your Star Wars, the Demon of Tatkov, and what's the top left? The B movie. Oh, that's so cool.
That was a sample comic book that I submitted to Dark Horse, or I was going to submit, and
Okay.
never really got around to it. But I'll show you. There's also blocking out pages. There's a page from that story.
Oh, and you did all of these frames for the comic?
Yeah. All the writing, all the illustration, coloring,
So
sequential
cool.
art. So I kind of wanted to walk through it all on my own. When I got this done, there's only about 5 or 6 pages. I kind of realized that even if I did get a job at the comic book company, which was Dark Horse Comics at the time, I wouldn't get to do everything myself. And I wanted to control the story. I wanted to, you know, choose my own characters and create my own things and put them into that universe. But I knew I was never going to get that option. So what are you going to do? You're going to make your own stories.
Yeah.
Right? So then so I did, made my own stories.
Oh, wow. That's you. That's you.
Yeah, that was the character that we saw a little bit earlier, Retro
With
Rock.
the cover. That's so cool.
He was fighting a horde of what the heck were they? Robot zombies. Robot zombies. What else?
Yeah, exactly.
Here I'm going to show you this.
Children.
We're going to go in an entirely different direction.
Oh, wow.
This is something I'm very proud of. If you go to the Science Museum at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada, you will see this done as a mural up on their wall. That's a mastodon. And if you go to the museum, it's kind of up on the second level, and directly up on the balcony there is an iPad. And you look through the iPad camera at the mural, and what happens is the mural comes alive. The mastodon starts to walk down towards the water, and there's ice there, and there's also a baby mastodon that comes in from the side of the screen. And the big mastodon goes through the ice and gets stuck and can't get out, and eventually submerges, leaving just a baby mastodon there wondering what happened to his mother. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole story of how this was found. The original skeleton that was found, I'm not quite sure where it was. It might have been in the States.
Okay.
But you find mastodon bones here in Ontario as well. They told the whole story. And then what happens not only to the animal, but to the environment around it. This would have been maybe 10,000 years ago. The next level, if you're looking through the iPad at the mural, you'll see the trees change and grow, and you'll see the water change and grow. And eventually you get to about 400 years ago or 300 years ago, you'll see an Indian longhouse in the background. And it just takes you right through time, right up to today.
So this illustration is what you would see on the wall, but then the animated one, did you do all of the animated?
I did the backgrounds for the animation as well. I didn't do the animation. That was handled by a company in Toronto.
Wow.
I did do the illustrations for it.
That's so cool.
So you're looking at a real physical painting, and then you're having it explained and animated for you through the iPad.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was a huge project.
So just a quick question. How many contract jobs, well, I guess, do you have on the go now, and how often do you get them? I mean, I know as a someone that does it as a hobby and a love, you're constantly doing it and practicing, but and I guess COVID could totally throw a loop into all of that too. But what are the thirsts of clients now like?
The clients, COVID threw a gigantic monkey wrench into everyone's plans, including mine. So I really didn't have a whole lot of work for quite a long time, almost a year. So I would just pursue my own interests. But because there were no art fairs and art shows, I couldn't set up anywhere. All I could do was online. So I've been doing that, and I have an Etsy store where I sell my art prints. But the clients basically dried up, and you have to have something else to keep you going. You really do. I'm extremely thankful that my wife is so wonderful. I mean, she actually got a lot more work during COVID, and she made up the difference. I owe her a lot for that. But now things are starting to get a little bit better. I've got, like I said, this opera contract, which has been ongoing for several months, almost a year now.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I take it really slow. I do a little bit of work here and there, and I'm a little over halfway through it right now. But it just develops. You can't do it all at once because you'll just burn out.
That's it. And it's important to remember that. I mean, for people that are just starting off illustrating, I think it's important to take some time away from your sketch. Well, if it's big bucks and you need it in 2 days, then you got to do it. But I mean, if you can put it off and not do it all at once and not burn yourself out, I think that's really important.
Oh yeah, and I've burned myself out. I really have. It was probably just a year or two ago. And I get thoughts in my head and think, why should I even continue? Yeah. The client work that was coming in was so uninteresting for me. It's just, I don't really want to do that. I want to say goodbye to clients and shift over to my own work, which is what my plans are to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do have good clients, obviously. The one with the mastodon painting, the University of Waterloo, is a terrific client. They they've got a lot of my work featured, and they're ongoing. You know, they'll call me every few years and say, "Hey, we need this." I did a velociraptor sculpture for them a few years back, and I think coming up soon, there's going to be two more murals. One will be for a volcano, and one will be for an underwater Precambrian kind of.
Cool.
So yeah,
That's so cool.
the clients come in, and the good ones will stick with you.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. I hear you.
But
I hear
in the
you.
meantime, you got to have your own thing to do, plus other things.
Yes. And I understand that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel it too full, but
Oh yeah.
it's
That can
but
happen too.
yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time for to be able to show us a lot of your awesome creations,
Thank
and just taking the time to just to be able to do this little interview for my students. And yeah, we'll of course keep in touch. I want to keep up and see what you're doing, but for the students, if they want to sort of go in and check out, and I know you said you have an Etsy shop, but maybe you could let us know your website and areas that we'd be able to sort of follow and keep up on your progress and stuff like that.
Well, you can find me. Probably the best place to find me is on ArtStation.
ArtStation?
Yeah. So I guess if you, sure, is it the Art of Mark R, or I'm not quite sure what the formal.
Well, what I'll do is I'll locate it and I'll put it as a link down in the bottom in text on the screen.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So my personal work will be usually on my Etsy page, and my client work and my personal work are both on ArtStation. So
That's awesome. Well,
feel
I
free.
just want to say thank you again for your time and for everything. And we'll keep up and we'll follow, and you and I will keep in touch anyway. And hopefully that steampunk festival comes back soon.
Exactly. All right. That's great, Chris. Anytime you want, we can reconnect. We can do this again. I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Tremendous.
And let's keep in touch.
For sure, man. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.